Hello everyone, my name is Musa Dlamini from TIM Group, and we are here today for Thinking with TIM Group. I'm here on the program with Sabelo Hlope, and today we're looking at one other issue which is very important in as far as how we as a country and how we as a region in Africa are going to be able to harvest or to harness the demographic dividend. Today we're speaking about youth leadership. According to you, Mr. Klopp, what is youth leadership and how does it impact, or how will it become important as we move forward to try and harness the demographic dividend as a continent and as a country?
Sure, thanks, Kosi. First and foremost, what is leadership? To use the words of John C. Maxwell, he said, leadership is influence.
Yep.
Nothing more, nothing less. Influence. So basically leadership is the ability for you to be able to influence, that is to make someone do that which you want them to do. Mm-hmm. And of course you don't have to use to force them forcefully, but just through conversation with them and through be it what you have written and talked to them about. So that is influence. So basically for us to harvest the demographic, we have to make sure that we equip our young people to make sure that they are youth leaders.
Yeah.
What do I mean by that? I mean, the issue of leadership, first and foremost, has to start with self-leadership. Mm-hmm. Because you cannot be able to lead other people if you are not able to lead yourself. So that is very important. We are not talking about management here.
Yeah.
We are talking about leadership, two different things. Uh-huh. So it is very important for us as current leaders to make sure that we train this next generation of leaders to be able to lead themselves first. Because if they can be able to lead themselves first, they can be able to lead other people, other group of people.
Yeah, you know, I'm just thinking about something that was said by Bill Gates, I believe. The statement is accredited to him. I think he said something like, looking into the next decade, leaders will be those who are able to empower others, or leaders will be those who empower others. Sure. So now, I think it speaks to what you're saying, like that leaders is influence. So leaders has got very little to do, if anything at all, about position. So leadership is not positional, but it's about influence, and it's about empowering other people so that they can do better. And if people do better as individuals, and then I believe as a community we do better. But now, I think that for Africa, a bulk of our population is young people, guaranteed. And going into the future, we will be having more and more young people in Africa because we're just having more and more of them. Now, it means that ultimately, our leadership structure will change very drastically and very dramatically in the coming years. We'll be seeing more and more young people leading companies, leading organizations, leading institutions in the public and private sector. But as a continent today, thinking together with the young people, with those who are a little bit older, what kind of leaders do we want these young people to become? Where do we want them to take Africa? Because the quality of the leadership that we are going to, I believe, breed today is going to speak into and inform us of the direction that Africa is going to go to into the future. But what kind of qualities do we look for in our leaders? What kind of traits do we want to inculcate into these young people as they go forward into leadership?
Yeah, I think just like you have rightfully said, leadership in this context that we're talking about, it's not about position.
Yeah.
You know, we're not talking leadership in terms of position, but we want to talk on leadership leadership and talking it to influence. Yeah. You know, so now if you want an Africa that is free from corruption, now when talking about Africa in nowadays, wherever you are in the world, they will immediately pop in things like corruption and stuff like that. So if we want to make sure that we have an Africa that is free from corruption, we've got to define what leadership will make that Africa free generation. You know, and it is now, you know, where we are supposed to instill this kind of traits, just like you have said, into these young people. So we've got to make sure that our young people have integrity. Yeah. You know, they are honest. And these things, honesty and integrity, are not just a river in Egypt. You know, these are things that, as the current leadership, as Banfula Banzala now, we have to make sure that we inculcate in those young people. Yeah. You know, to bring them in the right way. That is, to be able to inculcate these things. So, for us to have an Africa that is free from corruption. We have to integrate in this new generation. And of course, some of those things is not about what you are telling them; it's about what you are doing.
Yeah.
Before them, because they learn better that way. So we've got to demonstrate at all time, at all cost, integrity, honesty. We have to make sure that we expose these young people to all of those things.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for that. I mean, there's a powerful statement that you made right there. To demonstrate at all times and at all costs.
It comes at a price.
It comes at a price.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever character trait. I mean, we want young people to be bold, right?
Sure.
Because leadership is about being bold, being courageous. Leadership is about being a visionary as a young person. And you know, speaking of youth leadership, it's not a new concept really, even in the world. Yeah. I mean, you look at Martin Luther King Jr. How young he was when he led the civil rights movement in the US of A, and you look at guys like Steve Jobs. How young or how old he was when he started Apple computers in his garage. You look at people like Bill Gates. You look at people like, I believe, Mark Zuckerberg in the business world. In the political space, you've already spoken about Martin Luther King Jr. And these were all young people when they started this great movement that had this just amazing influence on the world. You look at, I believe, Malala right now, who has just received the Nobel Peace Prize. She was hardly out of her teens when she staged, you know, a protest against the Taliban, and would have done that in the Middle East, and a woman at that. And she was shot in the head, but she survived, and now she's looked upon as a beacon of hope. So the idea of young people being at the forefront of movements, you know, you look at the, I think we spoke about this in one of our other videos, at the Arab Spring itself, started by a 26-year-old young man. So the idea and the concept of young people leading and having influence in society is not new. So it's something that's just been there. It
goes way back. I mean, me and you have the same faith-based, you know, Jesus Christ himself was a young person.
Yeah, absolutely.
And look at this. Jesus was, as a young person, he came here on earth, you know, was born Mary. But look at this. He went and found 12 guys.
Yeah.
Of course, the number was bigger than that when he identified all of those people.
Yeah.
But we know about the 12 disciples.
Yeah.
So this man, this young person, you know, to qualify him in the context that we're talking about today, this young person used 12 people to colonize the earth for the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah.
That's the power of young people. So now the challenge and the challenge that we are throwing to our viewers and to our current leadership right now is make sure that you empower these young people and make sure that you have this succession planning, because it will be a tragedy to have a 60-year-old president or a 60-year-old CEO only to find that after 10 years he has not equipped the next generation of leaders to take his legacy after him. So the challenge is, let's make sure that we also, just like we discussed in the previous video on speaking about youth empowerment or mentorship, that we have to make sure that we empower, and the current leadership has to make sure that it also has a succession planning. A young person connects the past, the present, and the future. So it is very important, every organization, every church, every community, every government, you have to make sure that you have the people who will connect the past that you've been building all these years and link it to the present so that they can be able to take it to the future.
Yeah, that's a very profound statement. I mean, youth leadership is very important. If we are not investing in youth leadership, let us remember that our own kids will be led by the people who are young today. So now let us think about it. Where do we want our kids to be led to, and what kind of leader do we want to be present in the lives of our kids to lead them to the future? And with that, thank you so much. Catch us in the next video. This is TIM Group, Thinking with TIM Group, and I was with Sabelo Hlope. Goodbye until the next video. See you there.